It is tradition in this church that you should give something up for Lent. For instance, many people give up chocolate. And then, to mark the end of the chocolate-free time at Easter, they follow another tradition, and they hide a ton of chocolate Easter eggs where only they can find them. It seems life is all about balance. 5 weeks of famine are followed by at least 5 weeks of plenty. Traditions like fasting emerged as a spiritual discipline intended to help the faithful grow in deeper discipleship, cut back on waste and wealth, and recover a taste of something simpler. And fasting is still a valid way to clean your soul by experiencing hunger, to learn self-control, and to get a glimpse of Jesus' suffering. It can make the faithful appreciate what they have and instill compassion for those for whom suffering and want is a daily reality. In our gospel story, Jesus retreats into the desert and fasts for 40 days. He cleanses his body and soul for the work of ministry on which he embarks after he returns from the desert. But before he does so, Jesus has an encounter with the devil. And, as the devil likes to do, the devil tempts Jesus. And keeping in with tradition, what should follow now are some wise words about resisting the devil when you smell the sulfur stink and hear his hoofed foot approaching in the dark. Then you clutch your crucifix, say a prayer, and hold out the bundle of garlic. And when you realize that garlic only helps against vampires, the devil has already gotten you. And then you are going to do things you wouldn't have done if the devil hadn't shown up in your life, but instead had chosen another victim. A physical devil. A bad spiritual entity, a fallen angel or a powerful demon who roams around in the dark is a very practical entity because it lets the dark sides of our characters basically off the hook. To get rid of the devil, you do not need introspection and honesty and a change of heart. All you need is an exorcist, a spiritual exterminator, who frees you from the devil and his temptations with basically the same tools and procedures like the guy who sprays poison around your house to protect you from rodents and the mess they cause in your food stores. I think the temptation that Jesus undergoes are far more subtle and far more dangerous. Let's take a look at a moment into the future which awaits Jesus after the temptation in the desert. Jesus wields great spiritual power. He has the power of healing that restores people to wholeness and reintegrates them into society. He has the power of the word. When Jesus speaks, the people listen. He's a charismatic leader who draws people to him, and among those who follow him, he commands great influence. He creates a critical mass of people who hunger and thirst for change. And that includes spiritual change as well as political change. And then he leads that excited crowd into Jerusalem and disrupts the lucrative piety business on the Temple Mount. The elites who've turned the worship of the God of Israel into a business and who collaborate with the Romans recognize that they are in danger of losing their profits. The Jesus movement could do away with them. And so they conspire with the Roman authorities to get rid of the danger and destroy the Jesus movement by nailing the leader to the cross. What the devil tempts Jesus to do in this moment in the desert is to become one of those people who dominate the cult of the God of Israel. The devil tries to lure Jesus into corruption. Jesus could use his personal power to turn stones into food. He has power over the forces of nature. Turning a stone into food seems like a reasonable thing to do, especially when you're in the desert and when you're starving. But that's how corruption always starts. It starts small. No corrupt person ever starts out with the ambition to become a full-blown Bond villain. Oftentimes, they don't want to do evil. They want to do good. They want to use the power they have wisely and for the common good. It's just that one little thing. There's no harm in doing that. And usually they're right, but little corruptions tend to get bigger until they're gigantic, uncontrollable, and self-sustaining. And then the devil gets more to the point and offers Jesus earthly power, all the kingdoms of the world. The emperor in Rome is nothing but a minor player in this game. Imagine that kind of power at your fingertips. Assume you are the most humane king ever and you want to do what is right for everybody. Imagine the good you could do with that kind of power. You could really, really change things. And then, of course, there's that one small little thing. There's no harm in doing that. But what's a small thing for a king? Selling France to the Chinese to finance that elaborate conference of kings that would set the world on the right track? What's France when you could end, for instance, climate change? Throughout history, kings and worldly leaders have sacrificed millions on the altar of progress. And then the devil offers Jesus divine power. If you get God to do stuff for you, you basically control God. And when you control God, then you control everything. And then that one little thing, there's no harm in doing that one little thing, can suddenly decide the fate of worlds and of the universe. As soon as any one of us has a little bit of power, we face the same temptations. And we do not need the guy with a horn and hoof to tempt us. All we need is a little bit of imagination. What do we do with the power we're given? And it doesn't matter how much power we have. May it be the power of the babysitter or the statesman with a nuclear button. All power can be abused. And with all power comes the responsibility not to abuse it. But there's always just that one little thing. There's no harm in doing that. And then we unleash an avalanche that can grow and grow until it buries everything that we value and strive for. The way to hell is paved with good intentions that stumble over all those one little things. Jesus resists. And maybe with a real sulfur stink-emitting devil with horns and hoof, resistance to temptation would be much easier. But the devil within us does not wear such an obvious costume of evil. The devil within us is silver-tongued, pragmatic, and absolutely reasonable. And then when we whisper to ourselves into our own ears what we argue in these delicate moments that make sense. Spiritual disciplines help us to develop those qualities within us that enable us to do what is right and what is good. It can mean giving up something for Lent. It can also mean to add something to your life or to do the things you do with more awareness and intention. Anything that interrupts business as usual is good. And as long as it's not an empty ritual that we do because we always done it, but rather something we do to raise our awareness of what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is evil, what is God's will, or what is our own selfish desire. And with this intention, even the mundane act of giving up chocolate for Lent can help us to develop spiritual stamina. And that spiritual stamina we need to deal with the power that is given to us and the choices that are placed before us. We have to develop our characters, our spirituality in such a way that we can be trusted with the power that is given to us. God bless you on your Lenten journey. Amen.